Today, we get to tear down the very blown up 6.2 liter L92 V8 out of this. It's a 2009 GMC Yukon Denali that I bought from a local tow yard. I had no key, I had no history on it. All I knew is it looked kind of nice, so I bought it, assuming that there was going to be something wrong with it. Now, once it came in, I had a few people that expressed interest at my company in buying it and putting it back on the road, because I'm all for putting good cars back on the road. It was a little rusty, had a little bit of body damage, but overall it didn't look bad. And then one of my guys walked into my office and said, "Hey Eric, you know that 2009 GMC Yukon Denali that you bought from the tow lot?" "Yeah." "Well, here's the compression ring out of it." Yeah. This one's hurt pretty bad. About a year ago, I made a vow to my very loyal viewers that I would not tear down any more Gen 3 or Gen 4 GM LS architecture V8 engines. No 5.3s, no 6 liters, no 6.2s, because I've done so many of these engines, it's getting a little monotonous. But I left myself an out. One exception would be that if that engine were really bad, a guarantee of Malice in the combustion palace. Well, it's been a while. It's been too long since we've had a properly spent engine. Yes, we've torn down a lot of bad engines on this channel, blown head gaskets, spun rod bearings, some that have even chucked a rod. One rod, weak. So today, we're going to tear down this, because this one is hopefully going to meet the mark. As far as 6.2 liter GM truck and SUV engines are concerned, it doesn't get any better than this. And to quote my dad, that's the problem. It doesn't get any better. Just like the earliest version of the 5.3s were the best, and they got worse and worse as time went on, specifically after 2007. The 6.2 liter, while it did come out later, follows the same path where the earliest ones are the best. This being the earliest iteration, 2007 through 2009, the L92 has no cylinder deactivation, no displacement on demand, no active fuel management, none of that junk to go wrong in one of these engines. 2010, sorry to say, most of them do have it. And after a while, they became direct injected around 2014, and we all know where the 6.2 liter is these days. All over the news. Now, these engines still blow up quite a lot, specifically when they get run on 87 octane, long oil change intervals, and improper maintenance and care, which is the demise of so many engines we've torn down on this channel. And amidst all of those things, this engine still managed to make it 268,000 miles. So now I'm going to show you a few things on the engine I noticed. Number one is that it has a Fram oil filter, and I have no idea if that's related to this failure, but I'm sure that the giant hole in the side of the block has something to do with the failure, or the crack in the oil pan. Now, I will say this. I think this is the good side. And this one still has a motor mount, but I think that one's a little worse. It's a lot worse. This is going to be a fun one. Now, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I see an engine that has multiple holes in the block, the first pressing bit of information I'd like to acquire is whether the engine turns over or not. So that's what we're going to find out today. With enough force, sure. Well, let's do what we're not supposed to do and go backwards. Oh yeah, it's fine. Oh, I'm loosening the bolt. I think it's got a problem. The next thing I'd like to do is pull the plug, so let's get the wires out of the way. Uh-oh. That's not good either. On to the other side. Will you get out of here? Hose always getting in the way. What, you guys thought I was going to cut those? Someone else already did. Well, they're better than I expected. That doesn't mean that they're good. This one has been regapped by the piston. It's completely smashed. No gap, all the boost. Look how terrible these plugs look. Let me get you in there to focus here. Look at that. They're gross. They're terrible. This thing was chugging oil and God knows what else. That one's still the worst. We have Malice in the Combustion Palace for this teardown. Now that the plugs are out of it, I'm sure it'll turn over nice and easy. Sounds kind of crunchy in there. These are all normal engine sounds. Kind of wondering how my guys got the torque converter bolts out of it. The first thing I'd like to do is remove the intake manifold. Let's take a look down these intake ports. This is the right-hand bank. Doesn't look too bad. Side looks good. Here's the left-hand bank. And this was the cylinder that had a smashed spark plug. It doesn't want to focus. There we are. I don't see any chunks of metal, so that's good. There's the neighbor. And there's a hunk of aluminum hanging out right there on the intake port. It's always a good sign, but I don't see anything too wild in there. Overall, it looks a lot better than I anticipated. Let's get these coils out of the way. I sell a ton of these. I'm glad this has a complete undamaged set. Next, we're going to remove the exhaust manifolds. Nature has already removed the front one. And that one's broken. And that one's broken. That's pretty bad. It's not a big deal. We extract all of these when we sell the heads. Before I can get the right-hand manifold off, I have to get the dipstick tube out. This is a crusty engine. Think happy thoughts. Oh yeah? And it's out. And it's drained. A twofer. All right, let's get this right-hand manifold off. That one only has 2 broken bolts. Next, let's remove the right-hand valve cover. I see. One thing I like to look for on these rectangle port heads, which that distinguishes the shape of the intake port. These are 823 cast heads. Pretty much the same as LS3 heads, with the exception of the exhaust valves not being sodium filled. They're the same head. 821, 823, 5364. Those are all casting numbers. I'll stop talking about that, but I like to check the rockers because specifically the rec port head engines like to kick out the needle bearings on the rocker arms, and you'll find a whole gaggle of them laying in the head. I'd say it's not the most common failure mode, but I've certainly seen my fair share of them like that. I don't see anything too wild in here outside of signs of poor maintenance. Lots of varnish. Let's go ahead and crack the rocker arms loose. Next, I'll zip these out and remove the push rods. Let's take a look inside the head. Lots of varnish. Some debris from when I knocked the valve cover off, but there's a little bit of that oil that's in there. I don't see anything too terrible. These engines can break valve springs. Another thing that specifically the rectangle port LS heads like to do is drop the intake valve seat, and you can tell that something's wrong there because the height of the valve without the rocker will be significantly higher than the rest, and I just don't see that here. These are all pretty even on this cylinder head. Take a look at the rocker arms. They look good. Push rods look good. I don't see any of that brushed finished look. It's surprising, but they look good. Next, we're going to remove the steam pipe crossover. We're going to have to get our pliers out, get the hose off because of the way this is designed. You got to get the hose out of the way. Now we can unbolt the steam pipe. And now the upper head bolts. Next, we're going to crack the head bolts loose. All right, let's lift the head and see what kind of mayhem lies beneath. Losing a little coolant. Not a big deal. Oh, well, the head gasket, it looks good. The rest of this, though, good is not the word. No, it's not. Clearly, it's the junk on the pistons that's keeping it from turning over like last week. It has nothing to do with the giant holes in the block. No. So, starts off good. A lot of carbon on the top of the piston. Pretty typical for something that probably burns a little bit of oil. It's got some miles on it. Some vertical scratches, some wear. A little bit of glazing is a pretty odd pattern there. This piston is at the top of the bore. So there's not really much we can tell. But when you get to the third one back, well, that's bad. The piston is cracked. The part that embedded into the piston is embedded into the piston in a different spot. And there's another big dent. It's a better view for you. It's bad. I think the kids would say that's cooked. Well done. And then you go to its neighbor, and it looks like that's just all carbon. Let's brush some of this junk off here. Yeah, I think that's just all carbon. I don't see any chunks of anything embedded in it. Let's go look at the cylinder head. So I was really hoping to get a cylinder head out of this, even though these really like to crack between the valve seats here, right there. And you usually don't see that until you get them cleaned up. But it doesn't matter, because this one has huge dents. Look at the destruction to the combustion chamber there. I think the head is savable with someone that is talented. I don't know that it's worth the amount of effort. I typically get around $700 or $750 for a nice pair of heads. I don't know that that'd be worth it for a one head to save, but it's not great. I'm not Bill Nye, but this is science, guys. I think there's a problem with that one. So we have 75% success rate. I mean, I think maybe it's fixed, it's reconnected. It's got a broken rod. Now, we'll peel the valve cover off of the left-hand cylinder head. So right off the get-go, this looks pretty bad. It's really varnished in here. I don't see anything too awful, but we haven't pulled it apart yet. I don't see any forbidden glitter, no silver sparkles. So let's get these rocker arms crammed loose. Now let's pull the push rods out, or push the pull rods. Yeah. Uh-oh. That was a little wonky. Just like the other head, tons of varnish. I don't see any broken springs. And when you come down here, all of the valves are at the relatively same height. This one's a little shorter. That valve could be bent right there. But we have more to see. So this push rod's slightly boogered up. It's bad. It's got a bent push rod. I'm sure that's not the cause of the failure, but more of a symptom. But I did look at all of the all of the rocker arms, and they all look pretty good. There's not really any major damage to any of these, which is good. I do sell these when the heads are bad, and I believe the heads are bad. Before we go cracking head bolts loose, I got a couple bolts on the back of the engine. Now the upper head bolts. And now we crack some head bolts loose. Let's get these zipped out. And what's behind head number 2? Well, there's some stuff missing. Well, let's start with the good. The head gasket is very stuck, but it's good. And the rest of this is pretty bad. Lots of carbon. That's not carbon. What is going on in here? Kind of is carbon. It's like metal infused carbon. Oh, there's metal everywhere. Well, let's take a look. There's some vertical wear and a couple fragments of aluminum. Now, I wonder where that could have come from. There's a whole 6-piece piston nugget down in there. Yikes. Wow. There's lots of debris. The block is slightly damaged. Slightly. Its neighbor took some friendly fire here. Lots of dings and dents from debris when this piston exploded, which means that intake is going to be full of metal, and I'll have to clean it out very thoroughly if I wish to sell it. And there's even some metal in here. But you know what we still need to do? Still have to do that science. But first we'll look at the cylinder head and look at the deep dents. This head is wrecked with a capital T. Look at how much damage there is in this combustion chamber. The valve is destroyed. I mean, I've seen worse. Don't get me wrong. I have definitely seen worse, but it's pretty bad. I'm only going to be selling this one to the metal man. Time to complete our scientific test. All right, now let's get the water pump out of the way. Look, no bolts. No leaks. I can't really tell a date. I know there is a date code on here, but I'm not sure how to read it. It looks like it's a factory pump to me. These pumps can last a really long time. It spins nice. I don't see any signs that it's been a leaker. You know, there's no real signs that this is a bad pump. This is a good water pump. As I was saying, this is a beautiful water pump. Next, we'll remove the valley pan. This is another part I sell a ton of, not for a ton of money, but they sell very well. See any signs of wreckage in here? Not really. I expected there to be bits. Now we'll get the harmonic balancer off. I use this weighted Ingersoll Rand socket. Works great. All right, now we're going to use my puller with one of the push rods from this engine. This hasn't worked for me in a long time, which is why I'm going to try again. See if I can redeem this idea. Worst case is it doesn't work. I don't think it's working. That didn't work. I don't know why that stopped working. I really don't understand what the difference was. I even used my little impact instead of the big one. Let's get the big old impact on it. Wow. This is interesting. I haven't had this problem in a long time. Let's put the weighted socket on it and absolutely destroy my puller. So I have this weighted socket. It's specifically for Hondas. I think we're moving. Or we're bending the rod. I think we're bending the rod. Holy cow. That's pretty impressive. I'm gonna let my compressor charge up so I can really screw it up. Well, that was not an actual push rod. That was the rod from the tool, and this thing didn't even budge. So, all right, I have the shorter rod on there now. Fingers crossed this works. It's not working. I don't know that I've ever had one fight me this hard. Wow. I think it let go. It definitely moved. This poor puller doesn't know what's going to happen. Let's try that again. This one's definitely moved, but I don't know what gives with this. This is ridiculous. It just shot part of the block off. It just knocked part of the block off. I'm just gonna let it sit with some tension on it, and let me back you out here so you can see what's going on. Let's get the breaker bar and do this the wrong way. This will do it. I'm gonna take my weighted socket off, use a regular socket. Oh my gosh. It's so tight. I knew you'd find another part to lock up. So I don't really know what's going on here. Unless someone was in here, they put the harmonic balancer on with some grit in between it and the crank. The fact that it's moved out 1/2 inch and hasn't moved since tells me that some bad stuff is happening inside this thing. The wild thing is, never seen this before and I'm not sure what to do. It bent the short rod. What? I guess we'll try the shorter rod. I don't even think that's gonna work. What is going on with this thing? It's a bunch of liquid and stuff coming out of here. I don't understand this. No, that's not gonna work. So, okay, we have some options. We're gonna flip this around. I'm destroying this puller. OEM Tools, I think you make a great product, but it has met its match. Well, that's not gonna do anything. All right, since we bottomed out the puller the last time with the shorter rod, and the big rod for this puller is completely useless, we're gonna use another push rod because I don't have any other options at this time. This won't do it, right? It's not doing it, but let's try it with some more power. I mean, I don't really have much to lose. I don't think it's working. It's not working. That's for one of them 3-angle valve jobs. All right, I have the super bent long rod in there. Again, this is not going to work. Oh, it moved it. Ha ha ha! What the absolute crap has happened here? Why was that so stuck on there? Never have I ever encountered that. I suppose I could keep it for the short rods. And I know what you guys are thinking. You're supposed to start with the short ones, work your way up. Listen, I've used this exact, it was straight. I've used this exact tool to pull the balancers off of every LS I've worked on. Every single one. And some Dodges and some Fords and even some import stuff. And I've never had a problem until today. Big problems. Now that that debacle is over, let's get this front timing cover off. Finally got blue up for this one.
Uh-oh.
Someone's been here.
And that's why that was so much trouble to get off. That is not a factory pump of oil. That is an aftermarket one. And I can't tell you what it is yet, but we're gonna find out. The factory oil pump is held on, instead of having T30s here, it has 10mm bolts. Clearly you can see that the sheen on this oil pump makes it significantly newer than everything else inside the engine. Next, let's pull the lifters and trays. So the lifters are all in excellent condition. And it's not something you can say about a lot of pushrod engines these days, but they are. None of the rollers are locked up. That is probably the worst one right there. And it's still really good. That'd be like the best lifter on a 5.7 Hemi. Now we're gonna remove the cam gear. And this should move, because it's a Gen 4, far enough down. That's gonna be the difference right there. Yeah. See, it works. All right, now we'll pull the cam plate off. And now we should be able to slide the cam out. I'm gonna be careful, I don't want to hurt the cam bearings. Camshaft looks excellent. Looks just like a high mileage cam. None of the lobes are damaged. There's a couple dings, probably from flailing debris, like right there. And there's another one over here. But nothing like some of the cams we've pulled out of these engines in the past. And this looks like an original cam. It's a GM cam. I looked at the part number. I don't think anyone's had this out before. And now we're going to ruin the cam bearings by looking at them. Yep, that's bad. Oh, there's some chunks and stuff in there. All right, now for the reveal of the right side of the block. Let's get the motor mount out of the way. Oh, well. That's not good. I am very much standing by my first statement that this is the bad side of the block. Next, I'm going to remove the blast basket, which is going to contain lots of engine shrapnel. I don't think that one needs to come out. It's a slip fit. And on to the other side. And for some reason the pan has not just fallen right off. Blue, I need you. Oh, it's heavy. Oh, it's bad. It's real bad, guys. Oh, there's all kinds of goodies in here. So before I show you what's in the pan, I have to show you this, because it's not good. It's really bad. That's the fullest, it's not a diaper, it's a windage tray, blowage tray. That's the word we're looking for. She's back, guys. And what made it through that? Well, that's the small end of a rod. There's the rest of it. We can fix this. See, it's already starting to look better. There's a ring. Ring. Pick up the phone. There's a circlip. This is all piston nuggets here. You can just take this whole thing and Scoop that out. And then we still have a baffle, which could be hiding things. Well, it's not as much as I expected. There's definitely some chunks in there. Well, guys, I sifted through the debris. Of course, there's some more damage to the pan that we didn't see before. It's bad. But there's one thing, one smoking gun, one tiny fragment that tells me exactly what has happened to this engine. And that is this piece right there. What do you think that is, guys? That is a valve seat, or part of one. And I think it came from this one right here. I bet that there is no valve seat behind that valve. And we're going to find out by the end of this video. We're going to take that head apart. But I bet that this engine got hot, and that cylinder head, Chris Hansen those pistons and told it,
why don't you make yourself at home here? Have a seat.
all right, now we're going to remove the windage tray, but first we must remove the oil pickup tube. And pickup tube seems to be unscathed. The screen is clean. Now for the rest of the windage tray. Kind of surprising I can get on all the nuts that hold this on. Shouldn't have said anything. There's still another half of them to go. Oh man, that's the mother load. So there's some connecting rod. There's an oil ring. There is the bushing that goes at the end, the small end of the rod. Goes around this. This is damaged. The wrist pin is damaged. Bad. I can't reinstall this one, guys. I don't know what to do. So we've got a damaged wrist pin. There's one piston nugget. Two, these are fairly healthy size. And it almost cut the windage tray in half. This is all that's holding it. Of course, we've got some other, parts of engine failure here. I like to call them fragments of abnormal engine operation. You can just add them to the pile. That is super impressive. Look at that. Well, that's a wall hanger, don't you think? If anybody wants this to hang on their wall, just let me know. I'll run it through the parts washer, make it look nice and pretty. I can fix that. Let's go ahead and remove the aftermarket oil pump. Whoever installed this doesn't own a torque wrench. Oh, and what do you know? The tensioner's broken on every single one of these. So this is a Melling oil pump, which I guarantee you it's gonna look fine inside. I don't think this had anything to do with its failure. It's kind of peculiar that it had an oil pump on a 6.2. Usually not a repair for anything, but yeah, it looks pretty good. I also found a 21 date code on it, which means, and this thing is, I've had this truck's been off the road since 24. So that means this pump's 2.5, 3 years old at the most. Let's get this kind of cleaned up. We can get a better look. But I see no major issues jumping out. I don't think this failure was oiling related. I think replacing an oil pump was a band-aid for some other problem. Also, they did replace the pickup O-ring, but it's bad. They replaced it and it's bad already. I'll show you. So that's about the extent of the damage, which is not really damaged. This looks great. When you open this up, there's no metal in here. Finish on the gears is excellent. You could put this back together, bolt this into another engine. and it would be just fine. But this, it's already squared off, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this. When you squeeze it, it tears. I don't know what brand of O-ring this is, but whatever it is, I wouldn't use it. I would buy an OEM O-ring every time. I get a lot of comments asking where I get the shirts I wear in my teardowns, and to be honest with you, I pretty much wear these shirts everywhere. These are Blip Shift shirts, and their designs change almost every single day. I'll leave a link in the video description. Click on it and see what they've got. If you don't like anything, just wait a couple days. Now we're gonna rotate this thing over, see how bad it really is. We already know it's terrible. Oh, it's peeing on my floor. It's fine. I got plenty of pig mat to clean that up. Yeah, it's not great. It's about as not great as we expected it to be. Get some pig mat soaking that up. Well, those still spin rather nicely on the crank. Yeah, it's pretty bad in there. All right, let's crack the first two loose. I like this view too because you give some little extra access. I could probably, you know, maybe not. All right, now we have to deal with these two semi-rods here. I'm gonna get out what I can, but I think we're gonna need the old vice grips. Let's see, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the socket on any of these. Oh, I think we got one. Yes, that one moved. Look at that. 25% of the way there. All right, let's try to get the opposing one loose. We're not going to take this all the way out until we try the others because otherwise I got to fight that back and forth. And I wouldn't want to damage the crankshaft in the process. Yeah, I might be able to tap a socket onto that. Let's give that a whirl. Oh, that's a success. I am not going to fool around, and I'm just going to zip it with the impact. So I'm either going to round it all the way off, or it'll come out. Oops. Too much, both directions. All right. Well, that is 50% of the way there. We just have two more mangled bolts to contend with. Let me see if I can hammer a socket onto either one of those. That seems rather unlikely, and I know what you're saying. Well, it's still worth a try. You're right. That's why we're here. This looks terrible. It's almost like it was part of a blender. Yeah, this is not going to work at all, guys. Even if I get blue and jam it in there like I have in times in the past, it is not. I mean, unless I go like this, that might do it. That might be the move. This is like a magician. Stick it right through it, but this might actually. Aww. All right, I hammered a socket on there. I'm sure it's going to round it off. It's not going to keep me from trying. Oh, all right. We are down to one. It might work. That should do it. I don't want you guys to ever underestimate blue. We got this, maybe. Oh, yes. All right, now we can remove this. Uh-oh. I'd like blue back if possible. All right, we were able to get that off, and we didn't even damage the crankshaft. All right, let's turn this over to get to the next two complete rods and pistons. Whoa, almost dropped it. Could have broken it. I was wrong. Final two. Well, that one almost fell out on its own. Now let's zip the main cap bolts out. A little nervous about this one. Oh, it's fine. All right, let's zip the bigger main cap bolts out. Come on, compressor. There you go. All right, we're gonna pause for station identification and come back when the compressor's charged. All right, let's give this a whirl. The threshold between when the compressor stops and when it kicks on is a little on the large side. Oh, that came out way too easy. There's like no block to hold these in, so I shouldn't have said anything. This is the thrust though, so. And we got this rear main plate in the way. It's fine for the moment. Come on now. I'm actually going to unbolt the two bolts that hold the bottom of the block to the stand, make this a lot easier. Now this is something that most mechanics wouldn't do. It's a good thing I'm not a mechanic. And it's fine if you don't look at it. Doesn't seem to help us. I mean, it will, but it isn't. What if we just let go? That probably was bad, but if you don't think about it, it's not a problem. You know, it helps when you get all the bolts out. It's not a necessity. I mean, it might be a necessity. Man, look how easy that was. All right, now we should be able to pluck this right out. Now we still have the remains of one piston and a partial rod to remove, so. For my next trick, I'm going to sort through the engine gravel with a magnet because this should pick up rings and seat. So there's some rings, and it should pick up rod sections. Oh, that's a table. There's so many pieces and chunks everywhere. Oh, there's some pieces of something I really can't identify. Oh, that's a rod. I don't know. I already picked that one up, I think. There's a circlip. Anytime you need to sort your engine gravel, this is the best way to do it. All right. Well, we're going to start at the best part, the rod bearings. I know that's usually not what we say on this channel, but the rod bearings have wear, but they're not terrible. They're really consistent. There's a little bit of wear, a little bit of groove in that pair. It's really not bad. You're going to have to bear with me here. We're going to do the main bearings next. No shocker here. Moderate wear at worst. I would even struggle to call this moderate. These would go another 268,000 miles. No doubt about it. Now let's talk about what's left of the rods and pistons. Some of the rods, okay, none of the rods are good. And the reason I say that is all of them have impact marks. Bad impact marks. And the pistons, well, look at the amount of damage on the skirt of that. That piston's a desk ornament at best. There's some embedded metal in it. The rings look good. This one looks a little bit better. Still not good. This rod, lots of really heavy impact marks. Not great. This one, well, this one has exploded. It exploded so bad that it broke the wrist pin. I don't understand. I know some of you call it a gudgeon pin. We can call it a bludgeon pin because this thing was bludgeoned to death. This is bad. This has only happened one or two other times on an LS engine. There's where the small end of the rod came apart. There's the bushing. There's the center section of the rod, circlip. Now this is all piston here. This is all this piston. It's hard to believe that all of the metal shrapnel we found inside of this engine, and I'm assuming that most of the block was blown out and not in, but all of this carnage is from one piston. It feeds an entire family. And you can see the imprint, a semicircular imprint there, which is undoubtedly from a valve seat, which we will get to in a little bit. And then its neighbor snapped that rod clean off. Kind of dirty, actually. The piston somehow fared pretty well because it stopped moving right away. Severed its ties with the rest of the rotating assembly, but look at the impact marks on that thing. Both of these just absolutely diced this engine up, and this is what we see a lot of times. We get further back in the engine, more skirt wear. Look at those deep dents in the top of that piston. It's pretty cool. Unless you're the piston, that's pretty bad. There's another piece. That's a piece of valve guide right there. And look how it cracked the very crown of that piston. It's cool. The rear two, bad. Still bad. Wouldn't use any of this unless you wanted to hold some paper from flying away. More metal embedded into the top of it. Yeah, this one let go loudly. The crankshaft journals are all really nice. But the crankshaft is junk because the crankshaft was the driving force behind all of the carnage. There's lots of damage from the counterweights. Crankshaft, I'm going to rotate this over real quick. That was violent. More impact marks. Here, I got to go one more time. There we go. There's a better look at all the impact marks. You know, you guys have all seen those shredders, and they have kind of gears. I wouldn't call them gears, but the shredders have pieces that look like this that fit together that break stuff up. So what do you think this does in an engine at 5,000 RPM when it lets go? It does this. Absolutely destroys the block. Bottom of the bore, there's a chunk missing out. Let me get a light on this. There's a better look at all the damage. Super massive block hole on that side. Even bigger on this side. Yeah, that must have shook them to their core when this let go. Or they just didn't care because they couldn't hear it over the radio. It's pretty terrible. Oh, you think we're done? We're not done. We still need to pull the valves out of that combustion chamber. Here's the cylinder head that I believe is the culprit. I believe that there's not going to be a valve seat here. Although the valve doesn't look like it's in the wrong position. Obviously that combustion chamber is destroyed. But the fastest way to tell for a valve seat issue is usually when they fall and come out. The top retainer for the valve will be taller than the rest of them for whichever cylinder is the problem. And in this case, they're all even. Not like a valve is bent and it's lower, or not like the seat is gone and it's higher. So I'm interested to see what this looks like. There still could be part of a seat in here. I have no idea. All I know is when I sifted through all of this stuff, this is potentially the only seat material here. Normally to remove valves from these heads, like a caveman, I'll grab a hammer, an extension, and a socket. But in this case, we're going to use this tool. This part fits over the top of the retainer. This part pushes against the valve. And it usually works pretty all right. it works pretty good when someone knows how to use it. All right, so there's the spring unbroken. Ah, yes. We have a partial. I'm going to go ahead and knock a few of these others out so that we can have a basis for comparison. I want to check the exhaust to see if there's any damage. Not that I'm going to try to save this head, because this head is it's bonked. It's done. This one doesn't want to. There we go. Let's do another. Let's do the neighboring intake here. All right, there's another intake valve. That one's shut. I'll show you guys how this works on the other side in case you've never seen it. I have to admit, this is kind of a fancy pants tool for me. Normally, a hammer and a mallet. That's all she wrote. There we go. Now normally when these heads are junk, I'll knock all the valves and springs and all that stuff out so that I can get more per pound. It's probably double the price for clean cast versus breakage. So here's what the seat looks like. And what probably happened is that it dropped the seat, dropped this seat, and because this thing was probably turning 5,000 RPM when this happened, the seat came down, the valve couldn't close because the seat holds it open. The piston came up and forced it closed, which shattered the seat. Threw seat parts all over the place. We found some in the oil pan. That also likely, at the very same time that happened, shattered the piston, which is why with no piston, the wrist pin and the rod are free to do as they please, and they destroyed the block. So, this is the first time I've seen part of a seat stuck in here. It's not, oh, it is. Look at that. There you go. Have a seat. There's a better look at the sheer damage. The seat area, I bet that head is cracked between the seats. Very common on these cylinder heads. Gen 4 LSs love to crack between the intake and exhaust valve seat. It doesn't always mean that the head's bad, but in this case, this head is very bad. This head's going to be scrapped. The work to get a new seat in here and fix all this would easily surpass the value of one of these cylinder heads. So why do these engines like to drop valve seats? And if you own one, what can you do to keep this from happening to yours? Well, if you have a 5.3 or a 5.7 liter or a 6 liter with cathedral port heads, just don't worry about it. I'm not going to say it's never an issue, but I've torn down over 1,000 of these engines, and maybe a few of them, less than one hand's worth, I've seen cathedral port heads drop a valve seat. But if you have a rectangle port engine, it's probably the number 2 killer of these engines in my experience. The number 1, of course, being broken pistons from running 87 octane. Don't do that. But if you were worried about dropping an intake valve seat, which I own one of these vehicles and it is a concern, don't let it get hot. So the valve seats, one of the valve seats' job is to transfer heat from the valve to the cylinder head. And the cylinder head is aluminum and the valve seat is powdered steel, I believe. Those are 2 different metals that have 2 different rates of contraction and expansion. And the larger the spread of temperature that cylinder head has to deal with, i.e. the hotter it gets, because you're not going to make it get colder, the more likely it is to drop a valve seat. I've also seen a lot of them drop valve seats when the valve is hung open as the engine is shut off and things cool down at different rates. The valve seat drops, you turn the key, and all of a sudden you have a horrendous engine noise. If you hear that, stop driving it immediately. I have seen several of these things do that, and if you catch it right away, if you don't drive it and you tow it somewhere, you can literally swap a cylinder head over and you're back in business. You don't have to deal with engine replacement or letting go of your vehicle because it's not worth engine replacement. But in my experience, overheating is the number 1 killer of them. Just like the pre-Eagle head Hemis, those like to drop valve seats when they get hot. The 4.7s and 3.7s do the same. The rectangle port engines do this quite often, and it's totally savable as long as you have your ears on and your radio off. Just pay attention to the warning signs. This thing could have done that at idle, and someone could have said, well, I just need to make it home. That's it. And then, well, they didn't. The vehicle got towed out of a parking lot where there was a huge puddle of oil in it, and they never came back for it because it wasn't worth it. These engines are still $2,500 to $3,500. If you hear a weird noise, don't wait till it gets worse. Engines don't heal themselves. Very rarely do they heal themselves. In this case, it's done. It's scrap metal now. But this engine still has a lot of good parts. It has coils and an intake manifold after I thoroughly clean it out. Otherwise, valve train. This one wasn't so hot. A lot of times I buy these 6.2s and I part them out and I do quite well on them, but in this case, if you need engine parts for one of these things, it's not going to come from this, but I have plenty of them in stock, whether you need 5.3, 6 liter, 6.2 parts. I have oil pans, heads, blocks, cranks, rods, pistons, you name it, I should have it on the shelf. I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to Importapart.com and peruse our inventory. I've been uploading our parts cards every single week. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. I hope you guys that crave the carnage are satisfied. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.